Welcome to another live edition of Saturday's Warrior. I'm Trevor, and this is Adam, and this is the channel where we talk all things BYU. And normally this during the summer, it's kind of the silly season. We get into some weird stuff, but there has been a lot of BYU news, a lot to cover, a lot to discuss this summer, and this week is no different. So we're going to get into it. We got a full night ahead of us. We're talking AJ, we're talking Egor, we're talking BYU football. And we're even introducing at the end here a little segment we're calling the Replayables, kind of akin to the Rewatchables. We're going to go back and we're rewatching at least the highlights of these old games, reviewing them, kind of digesting what our thoughts were before and after those games, doling out some awards to players, and just reliving the awesome season that was 2024 as we get ready and amped up and hyped up for this upcoming season. So make sure you stick around for that. Also, while you're here, please jump in the comments, join the conversation with us. We appreciate all the back and forth and your thoughts. That's why we do this. And while you're here, also please go ahead and give us a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We have been doing this every Monday night throughout the summer. So we're gonna keep the conversation going, and as we get ready for football season once again. So, having said all that, got all that stuff out of the way, Adam, how are you doing, and what is on your mind this week?
Oh, I'm doing great. Caught plenty of sun over the 4th of July, burnt to a crisp. Had a good barbecue. Ready for the summer sports doldrums, if you will. But like you said, plenty of BYU news to keep us busy.
There's so much. It's crazy over the summer. Normally we come up with weird things to talk about, but there's legitimate things to be talking about right now. But talking about the 4th of July, man, I wanted hamburgers real bad. I've realized I've failed as a father, as a husband. I do not have a grill.
Oh my goodness, Trevor.
And I know I need to fix that. So I did do hamburgers, but it was inside, and the whole time, it was pretty hot outside and miserable. So I mean, that part of it was nice, but I realized
The ambiance is just off, man.
Yeah, it was not the same. And then we went for some fireworks with some friends, even though it's highly illegal here in Virginia. And I had to leave early because my daughter wasn't feeling well. So the rest of them caught the fireworks. So I didn't even get the fireworks. I didn't have outside barbecue. I just, my 4th of July game was off this year.
Yeah, that is a little bit. That struggles. We did the grill. I grilled for a few people. Had a lot of different cuts of meat on that grill. We did burgers, and then our neighbors always do some huge fireworks that we don't actually go behind their house. They light them off behind their house. We're in front of their house, but they're so high in the high up in the sky. They do these huge ones that we enjoy the fireworks show every year. So that was awesome.
That's awesome. I will say we do fire pit, we do hot dogs and stuff like that out on the fire pit all the time. So there's at least that, building fire, not the same.
No, I mean it's good. It just doesn't redeem you. Go out and get that grill. It's time.
Yeah, we've always talked about it, and it's just like, oh, do I really want? I don't want to do gas. Like that's just like seems beneath me, and then I also don't want to put in the effort for coal, and so
you don't want to put in the effort for coal. I know those who do it are true artists. Hat tip to them. But I don't have 45 minutes to wait for those coals. So propane's the way to go. I'm a big fan.
So anyway, I think that's what's kind of kept me stuck in the middle. But anyway, whose 4th of July game was not off was AJ Dybantsa. And I can't even remember. I can't remember if they played on the 4th or the next day. But man, by all accounts, I didn't know. Did you watch any of those games? I mean, I did not. I watched a lot of the highlights.
Yeah, just some of the highlights. I caught some of the highlights and read the analysis. But what really stood out, I think, to everybody, obviously Dybantsa, MVP of the tournament. USA takes home the gold. Tons of accolades there. Really good news for BYU to see him show out like that. But I think what blew everybody away was his intensity.
Mm-hmm.
It was everybody knows the talent's there. Finish at the rim. But the defensive prowess and the intensity he brought to every game kind of blew everyone away. And I think that's the stuff that's going to set you apart. And you hope that springboards into one of those iconic college basketball seasons that we all hope he has as BYU fans, and runs away with the Player of the Year award and the #1 draft pick. Because he's been the heir apparent for so long, and then Darren Peterson comes along, and I think some of these rating boards have to make it interesting, right? I don't know that there's really that much separation between 1 and 4 right now. You've got a lot of guys who are really good up in those first 4 slots. But if this is any indication, Dybantsa is going to pull away not only from his offensive prowess and his ability to drive and dish and finish at the rim, but the intensity he brings to the game, the effort and the defensive part of the game that he hadn't really showcased because he's playing against high school guys. Of course, his defense is going to look good, and he gets an international tournament like this to really showcase that skill.
Yeah, that is something that, and I'm not as up to date as some of the other top prospects on where they are with defense, but the fact that, all these people that do know these players and have been following all these players are still talking about how AJ Dybantsa stands out. I mean, we talked about it a few weeks ago, during one of the practices, it was a scrimmage. He'd already made the team. Like, he wasn't going to get cut. And he came out there with an intensity that nobody else had to win that scrimmage. And did you see the play where they come down and he just rips the ball away and puts it back? The other team had the ball and he just tore it away from them and lays it in. And so he shows that, like you said, the intensity, but the defense. And I think that will be what sets him apart. Because you look at BYU, he's going to have plenty of games where he scores a lot, but there'll be games probably where he's having a quieter night. Maybe they're focusing on him. Maybe it's just not falling or whatever. That happens to players, and he has the talent around him to still, put up points. But if you think about it, that's what set Richie apart. Oftentimes you'd have a quiet 20 or, points or 18 points. You'd feel like Richie wasn't scoring. But what really set him apart is you were seeing him on the defensive side. You were seeing him on the offensive side. You were seeing him moving all the time. And if AJ can do that with his talent level, and even when he's having an off night, that he's going to be able to do things on the court that get him recognized, that show what he brings. And because everyone knows he can score, that's not going to be the question. And then I think my favorite thing about it is this BYU team, the way it's built. I think he's going to fit it. This team is built nicely. They had a vision. They weren't just collecting talent. This wasn't a Calipari team. This wasn't just tons of dudes. This was a very deliberate approach at building this team. And I think he's got pieces around him that fit really well and that are going to allow him to do his thing and allow him to shine.
Yeah, I agree. I think one stat to watch was his 3-point shooting in this tournament. He went 2 for 18. And so not good from behind the arc. It's one tournament, right? It's one data point. It wasn't a major concern, his 3-point shooting coming in, but if that develops into an issue and you got guys who just play off him on the 3-point line and say, yeah, well, look, we'll take you shooting the 3 instead of driving on us. I think that's an element to his game he's got to have. And I'm not saying he doesn't, but if you're looking for any sort of weakness in the game or something that may prevent him from getting to that next level, that's a concerning stat to go that many games and shoot 2 for 18 from behind the arc.
Yeah, it is concerning. Do you think that, and we saw what that did with Demin, and he's still, even with a really good, shooting practices and drills and everything combine, that's still really sticking with him. Do you think that that's something that, if it goes into this next season, could potentially ding AJ and maybe he drops a spot or two in the draft?
It could, because you're talking about the difference between number 1 and number 3, right? And Egor was always kind of in that lottery range, 5 to 8, and it hurt him a little bit. I think it was AJ is so good at finishing at the rim, and his mid-range game is excellent. I think he shot 68% from the field inside the arc, and so that part of his game is unquestioned, and I think that catapults in there. But if you're looking for separation, right, between those top elite players, it absolutely could make the difference and bump him down to 2 or 3 if he comes out and really can't get that going. Now, I don't think that was ever a major issue in high school. And you're talking about an international tournament where the team comes together, throws together a few practices, and shoots it up. So it's not a huge concern, but it's certainly the one stat that comes away from an MVP campaign in an international tournament. If you're looking at anything and saying, well, let's hope that doesn't carry into the season, it's the 3-point shooting.
What I do like about these tournaments, which it's hard to, like you said, take a ton away from any of the stats because it is just thrown together. But I think what you do learn is who the dudes are, because this is essentially an all-star team from their age group, and they're going to go against other kind of all-star teams, right? And you see who rises to the top. And in this case, it was definitely AJ, and that tells you something. I mean, whether they struggle, there's not the cohesive unit, whatever, like that's fine. I think everybody understands that. But who's able to elevate their game and somehow find ways to win and contribute? And by all accounts, AJ does that.
Yeah, for sure.
So awesome. So do you see, like, because I've seen some people saying, as good as he is, as much as we're talking about him all the time, he's not being talked about enough, like just how good he is. Like, do we really appreciate? I mean, I've seen some discussion on, had he been in this year's draft, it would be a 50-50 between him and I've already
Cooper
forgot
Flag.
Cooper
Yeah,
Flag.
Cooper Flag.
You know, that some, about half the teams would probably want AJ, the other half would want Cooper Flag. And I mean, that's saying something, because we saw how ESPN gushed over Cooper Flag.
Yeah, it is saying something, and I think that was always kind of the scouting report on AJ coming in. The difference is Cooper Flag did it at the D1 level, Player of the Year award, and so Dybantsa has all the tools and could do that, but Cooper Flag is there now, right? There were those videos of him dunking on Team USA when they were prepping for their gold medal Olympic run, right? And everybody was making a big deal. This was before he started at Duke. Um, and so Cooper Flag was an elite level at an elite level from the beginning, and then he delivered during the season, and that's all that's left for AJ. I think he's got all the tools, he's got all the skills that he can be that good, absolutely. But you got to do it when the lights shine brightest, and Flag did it. I think Dybantsa will do it, especially if this tournament's any indication. I mean, at every level he's done it, and so there's no reason to think that the spotlight's going to be too big for him at the collegiate level. But certainly, I think if he plays the way he's always played throughout his career thus far, it will absolutely be a discussion as to who's better, Dybantsa or Flag, and if those two really blossom into NBA stars, it'll be fun to watch them go head to head.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I look forward to it. I think this next year's team is obviously set up for success. Now they just have to go out and make it happen. So we will see. Speaking of BYU basketball players, prominent BYU basketball players and drafts, we have Egor Demin, who was drafted. I think we missed it last week because so much was going on with Retzlaff, and we'd had the Ryder Lions announcement that somehow major news of Egor Demin kind of slipped through, but he was drafted number 8 to the Brooklyn Nets. Now, I, for one, kind of had mixed feelings on this. What was your reaction to that draft?
This may not be the most popular take, but Egor Demin to the Nets is Zach Wilson to the Jets. In so many different ways. I know it's not the exact same thing, but it's good for the program, right? A number 2 QB pick was great for the program. You want that. You want to keep churning out those high draft picks. A number 8 pick for Kevin Young's first year, that's great. Top 10 pick. You need that. So that's great. But putting Egor Demin with the Brooklyn Nets with 5 other first round draft picks, all of sort of similar make and build, is sort of like they're going to throw these guys to the wolves. And I can't think of a team that was built like this recently and that had success. And obviously nobody's expecting them to have a ton of success in year 1. But my biggest concern for Demin is player development. That's what you need for your first few years in the league, and he's going to get that as far as minutes on the court. And so the draft, being drafted to the Nets, is favorable in that sense that he gets time on the court. But that's not all you need. You need the group around you to succeed. You need proven player development. You need a whole lot more. And I just feel like the Nets are not set up for that at all. It's to me a bizarre strategy to use all 5 of those draft picks on basically four guards and a center. It just, I worry a whole lot about where Demon's at. I don't think he's going to succeed in Brooklyn. I don't think any of those guys will. I think he'll have a chance in his next stop, and that's always a precarious game when you start to play a game and you don't succeed at your first stop, and then there's a knock against you. And so I don't love the fit at all. I don't see him being super successful there, but not because of Egor. It's going to be because of the organization. It worries me a whole lot, and maybe I'm just scarred after Wilson went to the Jets, and we thought this would happen, and it did. Um, there's just some organizations in sports that don't seem to really have a good track record of developing those players. And to me, the Brooklyn Nets certainly fall into that category. I can't think of the last time they had an elite player that they didn't trade for.
Yeah, another comp to this. I love the Zach Wilson, especially going to the New York market, which is brutal, but is Jimmer, similar draft
Yep.
pick, going to a terrible team with no direction, no player
Yes.
development. And because you just think, I'm not saying that Jimmer would have, been an all-star or anything in the NBA, but does he hang around longer if he goes to like the Golden State Warriors and he's there
A-
with Steph and
Anywhere where they had intentionally used his skill set for what it was, right? Jimmer was not a whole, complete, and perfect player. There are always questions about his defense, but nobody pulled him in to say we need a scorer here in this slot. And maybe I don't know the ins and outs of the NBA well enough. Maybe his defense just couldn't cut it. But I felt like every team he sort of wandered to never really had a plan for this incredible skill set that he had that he brought to the table. Least of all, the team that drafted him kind of buried him after year one. That was really frustrating to watch. And I don't get some of these teams using such a high draft pick on talents like this, and you walk away and you're like, what's the plan? Like battle royale, everybody go battle it out and see who can survive and become the star player. It's kind of bizarre to me.
yeah, and like I said, I was of two minds of this. At first, I was just really excited because I was caught off guard. I was expecting him to
Yeah.
go kind of maybe late lottery or kind of in the mid teens somewhere. And I'd even seen as low as in the 20s. And so I was ecstatic to say, oh, yeah, the eighth pick, like that's great. And then I'm thinking about the Nets. I was like, shoot, I don't follow the NBA nearly as closely as I used to, but I do know that the Nets aren't very good. And then as the draft goes on, like you said, the fit is really weird, and it is too bad because I think while I love having the eighth pick, and it felt really good to have show all the naysayers wrong. Like look at him, the proof is going to be in how he performs and how he pans out. And if you start in a bad situation, it just goes to show a lot of times you don't get that development, but also there becomes a perception about you, and it's hard to break out of that and then go and find your role. And so even though his game might be better suited for the NBA than it was for college, if he's on a team like the Nets, he's not going to have the opportunity to develop that or to prove that. He will have the minutes, like you said. He'll be on the court a lot, but if you don't have other vets showing him the way and the coaching staff and really the game plan, then you are just going to get lost. And I would have rather him been taken a bit later and going to somewhere like the Spurs, for example. That was one of the
Yep.
conversations. It was, and can you imagine him going there with the professionalism around that organization and the development that they
Exactly.
always had. And even if Chris Paul leaves, but if Chris Paul were to stay and you had that kind of a point guard teaching you, because he has talent that you can't teach, his vision, his length, but yeah, he's got to be able to put it all together. So I'm wishing him the best. I'm really excited for him. 8 is awesome, but yeah, it is a bit disappointing that it is with the Nets.
Yep. Yep. It's too bad.
Oh, but that's the way it is. All right. Well, shortly before we hopped on, so let's switch gears to football. There was a new recruiting announcement that came out. We know that after Ryder Lyons, and then I think Retzlaff maybe pushed some people back a little bit, but we're going to start seeing more and more of these announcements. So, Adam, give us a little overview of since Ryder Lyons and since we met last time, who are some of the other names that have come out and announced?
Yeah, we've got a couple big ones. Akana is, I guess, considered an athlete. Not sure exactly where he'll play. 4-star, great wide receiver, great in the secondary. Could even bulk up and play linebacker, so he'll be a fun one to watch. Lopeti Moala, defensive lineman, high 3-star. Most think he'll probably be a 4-star by the time he signs in December, his official letter of intent. So some really, again, a couple 4-star athletes. There's huge momentum building. And then today, right before we hopped on, a 4-star linebacker out of Arkansas, I'm blanking on his name, Trevor. Do you have it there with you?
Yeah, Braxton Lindsay.
That's what it is. Braxton Lindsay had offers from Mizzou, Miami, Arkansas. I mean, we went into the heart of SEC country. We weren't even in his top four when he announced his top four. And he comes out for an official visit, that big official visit weekend, and then signs with BYU. I mean, that is huge. That just speaks to the recruiting momentum around BYU. Everybody's looking at this and saying something's happening with this 2026 class. It's fun to see. I think at this point, it's safe to say we'll have a top 25 class, possibly the best signing class ever in the history of BYU. To me, it places all that much more importance on this year and next year, our performance on the field, because I don't think these guys are just chasing an 11-2 record that we had last year, but you can't let the wheels fall off in the next couple of years. And I don't think they will. If BYU is vying for a Big 12 title and falls short, right, maybe because of injuries at the QB position or struggles at QB play, I think that's okay. I think if you're in the mix towards the end of the season and you fall short, I don't think that it creates a recruiting downfall in the end. But BYU needs to continue this momentum by winning on the field, because guys want to be part of a winning program. They want to be part of a championship program. And I think BYU has to prove, especially with the Retzlaff difficulties, that they've got the culture and they've got the momentum that they're going to continue to improve and put the product on the field that's going to vie for a Big 12 title year after year. And if that happens, boy, you could see this momentum continuing to build into a 2027, 2028 class. And then you have something towards the latter end of this decade. BYU never sees their recruits on the field forever because of the mission process, and some just don't pan out. And so it's a multi-year process. I think Jake Hatch touches on this all the time. It's not just this year. This is awesome, but you got to continue and have a couple more top 30 classes, and then you got something special.
Yeah, it's something I didn't see on Braxton was his connection to any of these other players, and that's a piece that I always find fascinating that they don't always mention in the articles about them, is how these guys know each other. Like, how did he get in on this recruiting visit? What was his tie-in, and what enticed him? Was it really just BYU? Okay, sure, I'll show up, or did he know some of these guys, or had he been familiar with some of these names? He comes, but like you said, that big recruiting weekend really says something, because not only does it say something about BYU and the message they can put out there, and this recruiting pitch, and they all have a good time. They're getting these guys together and they're gelling and they're starting to see this vision, and they all hang out. They're like, I'm liking this. I like being here. I can see myself here. I want to be part of this. And now it's, and I'm sure, money's a factor, and money plays a part. The fact that BYU can be in the conversation, but I don't think these guys are making off of money alone, when these offers have got to be like, your best offers have got to be all pretty similar, that at some point you're looking at, okay, where's the fit and what's going to put me in the best position to continue on with my career.
Well, interestingly enough, Hinckley Ropati shared an interesting story. If you haven't heard, I hadn't heard this. Ropati's back with the team.
Oh,
He entered the transfer portal, came back. He's got 1 year of eligibility, and he's back with the team. And he tells the story of he said he heard some information and realized he needed to hit the transfer portal. He didn't say what that was. He put his name in the transfer portal. Satake and Roderick pull him in the next day and sit down and say, "Hey, what's going on?" And they clear up the misunderstanding, whatever it is. And so Rapati says, "Oh, well, I want to come back." And Satake says, "Well, listen, you're in the portal, and what's most important is that you do what's best for you and your family. So I don't want you to pull your name out of the portal. I want you to go out there and visit, see what's out there. And if you come back to us, you'll be twice as committed." And he tells this incredible story of Satake just saying, like, "Look, I care about you and your family most. So go out there and see what." He said he visited Colorado. He visited, I can't remember, one other one. He said the numbers they threw around were jaw dropping from an NIL standpoint. And he's like, after seeing all that, I still just want to be at BYU. It reinforced the fact that there's nothing in the collegiate world like Satake. And I knew that before, but I really know it now. And I'm super committed. And I'm just like, man, BYU is pitching something unique, because where do you find that? Like, where do you find a coach who's just like, whoa, I hear you're committed to us, but check out what's out there, do what's best for your family, and if you're coming back to us, awesome, we'll be happy.
that is wild. That is
Yeah.
a really good story. And yet it doesn't surprise me.
No, it
It's
doesn't. That totally sounds like him, right? It totally sounds like the culture that he has built at BYU of just, hey, I love you, I love the individual, I want what's best for you. And you got guys jumping apparently now to play for BYU because you got the P4 component, you got the NIL component, but you've got culture, and you've got something that doesn't exist anywhere else in college football. And you can hear that appeal to the player, and you also hear how that appeals to the parents of these 17 and 18-year-olds who are coming on these recruitment visits to say, hey, come on here, we love your son, and we care about him. We're providing as safe as an environment as we can for his collegiate experience. I mean, it's a really resounding message, and it's hitting home.
Wow. That's an awesome story. No, I hadn't heard that. That is really cool. Having said that, I still think Hinckley Rapati is like my third string running back.
I agree. If you're talking about play on the field, I want Sione Moa to take that second spot behind LJ Martin. And then Haunga has got to be in the mix somewhere in some
Yeah.
creative packages. Ropati's great insurance package. I like Ropati. I just felt like he didn't develop into what we thought he'd be last year. But if he's your third guy coming off the bench, that's fantastic. That's Big 12 depth right there.
And like you said, insurance.
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't have any health issues with LJ this year, but yeah, for sure. Well, that's awesome. And yeah, so I think with the way recruiting is going, like obviously some of these guys have connection to BYU or to the church or whatever, and so that makes sense. But when you're bringing in, and I don't know, Braxton Lindsay's connection at all, but these guys that don't have the connection, you see them coming in like AJ in basketball, but we see it in football too, and something's really resonating. Something is different. Yes, the Big 12 has changed things. Yes, NIL has changed things, but that has just allowed BYU to get their foot in the door where it hasn't been before. But this is the same message that's been there, and allowed BYU to over succeed. And now that bringing talent with that same culture, with that same philosophy and mindset and
Player
buy-in,
development.
yeah, exactly. And then you bring in this kind of talent along with it. It really, I think BYU, assuming they play their cards right, and these guys come in and they develop as they should, BYU really has a chance to do some things that, well, I don't want to say hasn't done before. BYU's won a national championship, but do things on a higher level than really has ever happened. So that's really awesome. Man, I'm still taking that in. That is really cool. So last thing I want to get to a little bit is Jake Retzlaff. And I don't want to talk about this every week and use this as clickbait or anything, but I do want to talk about it a little bit just because the conversation's still ongoing. And I did see in the news, in I think Deseret News, that he's entertaining 4 offers. He still hasn't accepted one. There was some talk that he would have, joined another program as early as last week. I think there's a lot of logistics trying to make it happen. It sounds like there's a few different ways he's exploring how to transfer, because there's not like a clean transfer portal. So there's different ways. There's some, exceptions, and he'd have to get waivers and different things. There's also always the option of going in as a walk-on, which if he wants to do that, maybe it gets compensated through NIL to make up for it. But obviously all that stuff's got to be worked out ahead of time before he, pulls the trigger on anything. But I think his goal is to play this next season. And if he wants to do, obviously he doesn't want to sit out and, and go somewhere else. If that were the case, he could stay here and at least play part of the season or whatever. So, but yeah, some people, and it didn't occur to me that some people would feel this way. So some people feel betrayed that he's leaving the program after, they're like, well, he just needs to own the punishment. And I was like, well, the punishment, he was given the punishment, and I think that's fair. He knew, and in many ways, I think it was more lenient than many people, than I included, expected, which is fine. That's for the school and Retzlaff and everybody to work through. And ultimately, for him, he wants to be playing, and that opportunity doesn't really seem like it's at BYU. He can go somewhere else and play a full season. And some people think that that's like running away from the issue here. But really, when I heard this, I just thought, if he's going to sit out, it doesn't make sense for him to be here and to continue with, like, for the program. Do you really want Retzlaff here and continue to have those conversations about him? It will happen anyway. On every week, it'll probably still come up about how we lost our starting quarterback in the summer. But if he's here sitting on the bench and just that ongoing noise for a guy who's not even going to play. And then you think about it, 7 games into the season, either BYU is doing really well with who they've got and they're in great shape, then do you really want to throw Jake Retzlaff back in? Or BYU's not doing so great, or they're not as in the running, at which point you put Bear Bachmeier in if he's not already, and you let him develop. And so I just don't see where Jake would fit in with this team. Maybe if you're like somewhere in the middle and you think he gives you, a little tiny bump, especially going into your toughest part of your schedule. But that means it's him. If that's your plan, all through that first half of the season, is he splitting reps with your starting quarterback so that he's ready when he comes in? That's time you're taking away from developing the quarterbacks and the guys who are actually playing. For me, it just seemed like that suspension was almost as much as just a way to say, hey, let's part ways and we can do it amicably. Like, it's unfortunate that this came out and that this happened and that he made those decisions, but it seemed like when it did, that seemed kind of like the best case scenario on both sides. So it hadn't even occurred to me that some people would resent Jake for leaving. It felt like this is kind of the best for both sides. What do you think?
Yeah, well, and I got to say first, as fans, like, we got to get over this ownership mentality around the team. Like, these guys are 18 to 23-year-old kids, right? Adults. They come in and they play for us for a while. As fans, man, just love them and be encouraging, and they got to make the decisions that's best for them, especially in the era of transfer portal and NIL and all that. Gone are the days where you get somebody as a true freshman and they leave as a redshirt senior. It just, that'll happen on occasion, but just get used to the fact that guys are going to move around, right? It's like free agency right now in pro sports, and so it just makes no sense to be resentful against guys when they leave. They're going to leave. They're going to do what's best for them, and the best thing we can do as fans is cheer them on no matter where they were. It was cool that he was a BYU guy when he was here, and there were crazy circumstances that led to him leaving. So let's all just be the bigger person in this and cut with the negativity around a player that leaves for whatever reason from BYU. But as far as his situation, I'd have to agree. The only circumstances where his playing after 7 games for us is beneficial is if we're 6-1, and in that 7th game you lose your starting quarterback to injury. That's it. That's the only scenario, right? 5-2, 6-1, your starter goes down, and Retzlaff goes in. Because other than that, you're right. If whoever's in there is 6-1 and they're cooking, you don't make a change at quarterback. You got somebody who's 6-1 going against the meat of the schedule that's clicking with your receivers. You don't make a change. And if you're 3-4, Bear Bachmeier's the guy. You're planning for the future. It's the next one. So there's just not a lot of value in him playing after those 7 games. I would say from Jake's perspective, man, get on that team sooner rather than later. If you want to play this season, you got a playbook to learn. You got receivers to gel with in virtually no time at all. I mean, get on the team and get moving if you're going to be successful. I don't think he has any time to waste. And so I don't know the ins and outs. I'm sure it's incredibly complicated to actually transfer. But, man, I think he's got to get on that if he's going to be successful.
Yeah, and I'm sure he is. I think they're navigating. I think he's of the same mindset, which is why I think they came out as quickly as they did, which is why that case was closed. I don't know this. I haven't seen it reported, and everyone will have signed NDAs, so I don't think any of it will come out anyway. But I'm sure they came to a financial resolution there on both sides, and they paid the other side and to get it to go away so that other schools would take him so that he could move on, because he knew this was the situation with BYU. So anyway, I'm totally fine with it. What Jake is doing. I think he was committed to BYU. At no point in the offseason did anyone think that he was going to leave and go elsewhere. He wanted to be here. He was all in. He was as BYU as could be. Obviously, it's just not in the cards right now. So I wish him well. Especially now that, things do seem to, and some evidence does seem to suggest that he was falsely accused of at least some of the allegations that came towards him. And so, you just want to see him be able to move on and do what's best for him.
Yeah. I hope he makes it to Notre Dame. I hope he goes to the national championship game, and I hope he loses to McKay Hillstead and the Cougars. That's what I hope for Jake Retzlaff. I hope it's a great season.
Well said. Well said. So I just wanted to touch upon that because I was surprised that was still coming up. And anyway, other than, discussing where he finally ends up, I'm kind of done with that portion of Jake Retzlaff. Wish him the best. And, it sucks, but it is what it is. A couple things here. Backtracking, we talked about Egor Demin, and I meant to show this earlier, is he dropped this post, and it's not Demin. I don't know if you've seen his Nets jersey, but he's got that the dots over it, and I don't know what that punctuation is called, but it makes a yo sound. And so it took us the whole time to not say denim, for people to say Demin and get that right and get Egor right. But now it's
I can't quite see that. Is that an umlaut over the E?
Yeah. So, and I don't know if that's I doubt it's the Russian name for it, whatever, but it makes I think it'll show up here. DYO. Dyoman. Yeah. So Egor Dyoman.
Oh.
And so he's
the whole season.
Yeah. So I was like spending all this time trying to get it right. And I was like, I listened to the BYU, on the team page, and they say their names and how to pronounce it. And so I learned it. And now it turns out I've been saying
Greg Wrubell is the most fastidious announcer. I love his professionalism because he goes over the top to make sure he pronounces these guys' names correctly. I'm surprised that didn't come up then. But hey, now we all know. Dyoman.
Yeah. So I guess without the umlaut, he would have it would have been Demin. We would have been close enough. So that's good to know. So BYU fans, we've been saying it wrong. What I mean, he let it. But anyway, I also saw this was wild to me. Here, let's open up the actual post. I've got a couple things on Instagram, which has been my don't normally get on here to share things, but yeah. So we got Caleb Lohner, which hoops at BYU Baylor, then transferred to play both at BYU, at football, at basketball at the U, and then just 57 snaps. I did not realize he only played 57 snaps, but then he was drafted
wild.
Broncos. And I mean, he got touchdowns. He made the most of those snaps, but it seems like, it seems like if you look at the percentage of 57 snaps and how many of those were touchdown catches or, these so he was involved in the offense of actually making catches. So it's wild though, that you see players that, we have players that didn't get drafted with way more experience, have shown way more and are on tape. And somehow he's been able to parlay this into a career in the NFL. So
yeah,
good for
intangibles,
him.
man. Intangibles. People just love potential.
Good for him.
Yeah,
I
good for him.
So
I hope it works out.
Yeah, I've got no issue with Caleb Lohner either. I know he gets some ridicule from BYU fans, but I say good for him for going out and making it happen. So
I thought it was funny when he said he was going to suit up for football. I was just like, oh man, what are you trying to do? Like just trying to get playing time anywhere? Like it's not working out anywhere for you? And man, props to him. He knew something none of us, no one else knew, and yeah, turned it into a nice gig with the Broncos.
Absolutely. So yeah, I say good for him. Way to go. I just think that's wild. The 57 snaps.
Yeah.
So good stuff. So we now are going to move on to, I'm trying to get everything pulled up here, but we're going to do a new little segment as we lead into the football season, 2025 season, is we're going to go back and re-watch the highlights and go back through all the 2024 schedule, starting with SIU tonight. Well, and we're going to have to do 2 a week. So we got SIU tonight and SMU, and we're going to go through each of those games and break them down, talk about our thoughts and feelings of the team, and just kind of relive some of those memories, because there's obviously the highlights from the season, but I was surprised as I was watching this how much I was like, oh, I'd forgotten this. And so it's just fun to relive it and go back and see the Cougars, on what was just a super memorable season, one I think we'll never forget. So anyway, let's I'm gonna pull this up. Hopefully we don't get flagged here. Oh, it's not gonna, I'm gonna have to redo this. But anyway, so while I do this, let's talk about it. So going in and starting the 2024 season, starting with SIU, I'm kind of curious what your mindset was, because for me, I was thinking we didn't really know what to expect because Jake Retzlaff had a very rocky start to his tenure as BYU starting quarterback, and there was that long drawn out QB battle between him and Gary Bohannon. Finally, Retzlaff gets in and they pick him, and kind of felt like last minute right before this game, and so there's a lot of question marks where we're at. And for me, I was like, I don't know. I don't think there's a lot you can learn from a game like SIU, like we have like against Portland State this year, right off the get-go, if BYU is rolling. But you can learn a lot, as we've seen against Portland State in the past, that if you do struggle, could be signs of deeper issues with the team. And so more than that, it was like, you don't want to see the team struggle. Other than that, I don't know if there's a lot you can learn from this game.
Yeah, and that's how it is against any of the FCS schools, like you said. If you win big, that's good. That doesn't mean you're going to have a great offense or defense. If you if you have a close game, however, loss or victory, that really bodes poorly for the season. If you look at Portland State or Sam Houston State, those years where we've struggled in that game one, it doesn't portend well. So all you want to see out of this game is taking care of business.
Yeah, and so it's funny you say that because we had this opening drive, which actually maybe that played. It wasn't the best example of it, but went pretty well. But outside of that, BYU started to sputter in the second half. And so obviously you see Chase Roberts, who was the safety blanket time and again. But the first half left me feeling a little bit squeamish with our performance. I was starting to get a little bit of flashbacks from the Portland State game in 2017.
Yeah. The play that sticks out to me that I'm sure we'll get to in just a little bit. I'll say this: when we went back through and watched the highlights, it does look like a game where they took care of business, because you think back and you know the final score now, and so you don't get as squeamish in the first half. There's not as much concern. BYU did just fine. And it looks like a game where they did what they were supposed to. But you're right, there's a lot of angst coming into this game as to how we're going to perform. Right, they had their running quarterback, and I think there was the narrative after this game of, oh, can the defense stop a running quarterback? And that kind of plagued us through the whole season after this game.
Yeah, that was signs of things to come, because I watched, I had forgotten just how bad it was. I mean, we got a lot of pressure on the quarterback. We had other tackles for a loss. But if and when they did get any sort of yardage, it was like that big chunk yard on a run play. And yeah,
that was it. I think they had like 30 yards of offense outside of their QB scrambles. That was it. I mean, that was their whole game, which I didn't mind so much. I know everybody made a big deal out of that, but to me, it didn't bother me as much, because BYU went out there saying, we're going to shut down the pass, we're going to shut down the run. Period. This was the play that stuck out in my mind from this game. This was a moment, because that ball goes so high in the air, and Phillips has 3 steps on him, and all of a sudden Retzlaff shows his moxie, he shows his talent, and he put that thing on the money. And when I think back on SIU, I remember nothing from this game except this play over and over again. It was one of my favorite plays all season long, because it showed that Retzlaff had what the coaches had been saying he had for the weeks and months leading up to the season, and we never saw it the year before. We never saw him make a throw like that. And JoJo Phillips, who I was hoping that was sort of telegraphing things to come for him. I don't think he broke out last year as much as we need him to this year, but he has that big play ability.
we keep hearing
So I
his
hope we
name.
see more
I've
of that.
got high hopes for this season.
He is supposed to be, I mean, 6'5", he can fly. He dropped a couple passes, but overall, I think he had pretty good hands.
So did Lassiter.
Well, Lassiter didn't have good hands. We won't get into that, but I'm excited to see what JoJo Phillips does this year. But to me, this was a sort of breakout moment for the offense to say, yeah, they can do this, and they did. They sputtered at times when you didn't want them to, but overall, it felt like they did what they needed to in this game.
Yeah. So that was troubling. We just saw right there, it looked like they almost, coming out of timeout, still almost had a delay of game, which is just sometimes there's these head scratching moments with BYU, and I don't know if it's A-Rod or what, but they got to get that fixed because that can cost you games. But this worried me too a little bit. Is aside from ads, Liberty Mutual. Hey, no free advertisement on here. But they, just really sputtered here near the end, and then to let SIU go on this touchdown run, and essentially what is their 2-minute offense, and they go right down the field, and I mean that's their one big catch they have of the game, and score a touchdown and make things way too interesting going into the half. And so I'm gonna go forward here. So you get the touchdown, and I don't think this. Oh yeah, this one's it.
Yeah, that was it.
And then what I do love on the flip side of that is BYU gets the ball back with almost no time, and what they're able to do, get down the field. They're not afraid to run it. They know they have their timeouts, and they use it well, and they know what range they have to get in for Will Fair, and they know what kind of leg he has.
Well, and I think at the end of the half, this was his first 50-yarder, wasn't it? I mean, didn't he have to kick a really long one?
This was a 50-yarder.
Yeah, because they get down to the 37, 38, or 32, 33 there, and kick a 50-yarder, which he nails. Look at that. He would have been good from 65. I mean, that thing he launched that thing. So
they knew what he had. And the fact is, and they knew, and that just changes things so much, like on the game. Like it just gives you so much flexibility in those moments to go, and it gives you a tiny bit of momentum coming out, going into the half. And then for me, this is the play that stands out for me. This is one that I remember. Both were really impressive. What I liked on this one, and I'm surprised they didn't show the replay with this one, but the slowed down version, is you look at Retzlaff. He's under a lot of pressure on this one, and I can't remember. I'll have to look at the stats.
Three guys converging on Retzlaff and throws it into triple coverage.
So the other one was more spot on throw, but he got that off, and then Marion went to go get that. And so it was just, and here, I'll have to look at it, the stats here, as far as, when I switch screens, it cuts it off. Okay. Well, let me look real quick at which one was farther of the two passes, but either way, both of them were bombs, and it got you feeling pretty excited with the receiving core. I mean, because Jake Retzlaff spread the ball around in this game. Here, let me just at least take that off while we're talking, and then let's see. I'm in the wrong area. So JoJo Phillips, that was a 57-yarder, and Keelan Marion was 52. So I mean, we're talking 5 yards, but either way, those were monster throws, and I like the other one, just with the ref having to dive out
to get out of the way.
So he doesn't get crushed. You got three people trailing him, and he somehow gets it in there. And credit to Marion for going down to get it. And then this was a great catch too. I mean, at this point, BYU's just rolling, and everybody's feeling it. So, and this is when you're like, okay, this, BYU definitely has his game in control, but it did make you a little nervous that it took so long for BYU to get going. But it's okay. That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
But I love how much pressure their defense got on the other team. Again, like a tackle for a loss there, and sacks. That was also a sign of things to come for this season.
Yeah. It was a complete game overall, and they did. I mean, this is halfway through the third. They've got the game in hand. And again, their quarterback scrambled. I felt like that was sort of an unfair moniker that followed him throughout the whole season, because you play these guys, and then we'll get into the SMU game, but with Kevin Jennings, who can run like crazy. Those are really good running quarterbacks, and it's all the team could do, right? Was it's hard to contain a running quarterback anyway, but when that's the last option the team has, that's all they're going to do. And that, props to BYU for shutting down the run, shutting down the passing game completely. And so all they've got is try and scheme the quarterback run.
Yeah, because it was the first two games, or was it even when they were a while before they even allowed a
passing touchdown? Wasn't it 4 or 5 games into the season they hadn't given up a passing touchdown?
Got one, but maybe it was at the end there. I can't remember, but it was they it was a while before anyone was able to score on him through the air. So, and
Yeah.
this one seemed like a little too cute, this play right here, and they sniffed it
Yeah.
out. Oh, well, that happens sometimes. But let's go ahead. This game is pretty well under wraps. So let's go ahead and dole out some awards. Let's start with offensive MVP. Who you got?
I'm giving it to JoJo Phillips. I know that he just had the one catch, but it's the one that stood out to me. And I think he had a good game overall. But I thought it was such a big play and such a big moment, a crucial moment to come up with a catch like that and just beat his receiver or beat his defender by 3 steps. What about you?
For me, I've got Jake Retzlaff. He comes in, a lot of pressure. He knows the fans are a little anxious about the QB situation. He knows that what happened in camp, he had to go through this tough battle, and he knows that the pressure's on. They come out a little bit slow, but he's spreading that ball around to a lot of different receivers. He's still taking some hits. I mean, he has probably more time than you'd usually have against some power 4 teams, but he just continues to do it, and he's making his reads. He's doing, he did his thing, and he was able to showcase his arm and his overall pretty good decision making in this game. And so I think it's him for all those reasons. And it's one of those things that when everybody has like a great game, it feels like everybody has their moment. And then at that moment, you got to look to the quarterback who's distributing that ball and just doing it time and again.
Yeah.
How about on defense? For me, I'm going to go with that play we just saw from Jacob Robinson, that interception. I'm sure there were other ones. Interceptions just always stand out to me. And there was, like I said, a lot of pressure on them and getting into the backfield to shut this team down. But I love those interceptions, and Jacob Robinson was one of my favorites doing it.
I'm actually going to go with the D-line unit as a whole. So much disruption in the backfield. And that's what you wanted to see. Besides Jake Retzlaff settling down and distributing the ball like he did, you really wanted to see sacks, havoc in the backfield. We were last in sack rate the year before. And so when they sacked the quarterback a couple times, I was thrilled. So I thought the defensive line did a really good job of causing havoc all game.
All right. You switched me on that one. I like that. So how about on special teams? I think there's no question we're going with Will Ferrin on this one.
I think there's going to be a lot of Will Ferrin awards this year for special teams.
I mean, it goes without saying, but that's the thing is BYU is able to do on special teams in a lot of different ways. And it wasn't just the kicking. Having said that, with as good as BYU was with all their special teams, you're right. Will Ferrin continually stands out, which goes to show you just how good he was. And what I love is at the end of that first half, it was kind of that was a sign of things to come, a little bit of foreshadowing, because this was not the last time that we'd see Jake. Obviously, we're all thinking of the Utah game, but Will Ferrin, I said Jake, Will Ferrin being able to hit a kind of a last second field goal, but he did it at the end of other games. He did at the end of other halves. Like he just did it. And sometimes, time and time again, just in the middle of the quarter, whatever, but he just did it time and again. And with different pressure situations and from different distances. And he was just consistent. Yeah. He missed one. Well, we'll talk about that one, but he wasn't perfect, but man, he was just, he's just ice in his veins.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that was fun. Having said that, when we ended that game, so let's finish the awards. So those were our special units overall. I'd go to the overall MVP. I would go with Retzlaff there. How about you?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that was like you said, he needed that game. All eyes were on him, and he came out in a big way.
Okay, and then play of the game. I had a sneaky suspicion you'd go with that one with JoJo Phillips. There's really no wrong answer. I went with Keelan Marion just again because of the pressure that he was in, even though the JoJo throw was, I mean, that one was just perfect. That was a better overall throw. It was just, it was pretty, I don't know. I just like the Keelan Marion one, and it was one that stood out in my mind. I don't know if it was maybe just the ref diving out of the way or what, but so that was one that kind of stood out to me. So, sorry, I spoke for you, but I'm guessing JoJo.
Oh yeah, love that play. It'll be up there for the top play of the year. There are plenty of other clutch plays and game-winning plays that I go with, but just plays that I love that really got me out of my seat. That was one of them.
Okay. All right. Well, let's switch it over then. Well, actually, as I do this, where was your mindset after the game ended? We went in. Okay, we need to see something from Jake.
Yeah, I mean, you check the box, right? It was great, but like we said, it didn't prove anything. Now you're going to go on the road and play a really good SMU team that had struggled against Nevada the week before, but certainly dangerous. Didn't think they were a CFP team. I didn't think they were going to own the ACC like they did, but I thought they were dangerous, particularly on the offensive end. I thought we'd be pretty comfortable offensively. It was supposed to be a high-scoring game. And the question was, is our defense legit? Did they just play well against SIU because SIU, couldn't get things done because they didn't have the talent, or were they a really good defense? And I think that was kind of the largest questions going into that next game.
Yeah, even though I had said like we can't take too much away from this game. Yeah, it felt good and everything. With SMU struggling, like you said, against Nevada, and then just being SMU, like I probably felt way more confident about this game going into it than I should have. Even though I
Oh,
was
yeah.
saying the right things, I think inside I was like, BYU's not going to lose this game. BYU very easily could have lost this game, and it was an exciting one. It was a nail biter all the way. It was low scoring. It was entertaining. It was an entertaining game, even if not painful at moments to watch. But yeah, BYU again, they actually start off the game pretty well, and before hitting some lulls here. Needless to say, but yeah, starting off kind of where we picked up, and the defense was just nails when they had Stone in, and they just had his number at one point. I can't remember the stat, but they don't show a lot of it in these highlights here that I've pulled up, but at one point they had like negative total yardage for the game
Oh
after
yeah,
like three
yeah.
drives or something.
Yeah. I mean, it was crazy. And it was funny the difference between and I don't know if it was an offensive line mentality, if it was the mobility of Jennings that made the difference, because you remember they were switching off Stone and Jennings drives to start the game. And when Stone was in there, he couldn't take two steps in the backfield without the pocket collapsing on him. Um, and Jennings, I don't know if we just didn't blitz as heavy because we had to respect his run capability or what it was, but he at least had a little time to get the play started. And while BYU was still stuffing them, they couldn't get first downs, they couldn't move the ball. Stone went backwards every single time, and I felt for the guy. Um, and he really struggled getting it done. So the defense. This was, to me, the defense's coming out party. This was huge by the defense coming in, because that offense was so good not only the year before, but we didn't know then, but throughout 2025. SMU's offense was incredible, and to come in their house and stop them like this was amazing.
Not that they're known for the best home field advantage or the most rowdy fans or
Yeah.
biggest fan base, but yeah, absolutely. It was, in hindsight, at the time there were a lot of question marks ending this game. Like, okay, maybe BYU's not for real. We just really struggled against SMU and couldn't get points up. Yeah, in hindsight, it's very impressive, especially like you said, the defense. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Well, as good as the defense was, I think there were some real low lights that will probably show up here for Retzlaff, and some real question marks in his decision making in his game, and that kind of reputation that would plague him throughout the season of kind of throwing picks, being a they talk about being a gamer, and just being willing to put the ball in anywhere, and you could see him just kind of lose his head sometimes, where he wants to win, he wants to make the play so bad that he just threw a couple really bad interceptions here. And so the offensive struggles were, I think, as much a story at the time as the defensive prowess. Um, because it wasn't just that. I mean, I think, what is this, 4th and 1 down at the goal line, and BYU comes up with a stop. It feels like this happens so many times. They get into the red zone, and not just the red zone, but they be at like the 3-yard line or the 6-yard line, and BYU come up with.
Oh, lost you. Yeah, their defense was was lights out when they had to be, and they were put in some tough situations. The offense wasn't doing them any favors, and as we see here in the middle of this video of these highlights, it's all SMU, and they're not even showing BYU's mistakes. And this is an impressive field goal. At that moment, I mean, I thought they were crazy for taking that. He nails it, and they show that they're lights out with the field goal. And it goes to show that kicking field goals is not always a bad strategy. When you can get points, you take what you can. And so it was not. It was excellent that BYU was able to keep them out of the end zone, but SMU was still able to make BYU pay and stay on the board with it. So very impressive. It was kind of on the flip side from I think what we normally think of as BYU having the advantage there with the field goal kicking, as we've already been gushing about Will Ferrin. And let's see, Adam, I'm gonna try and get you. It looks like you're frozen on here again. Let's see, going through here at the end of the half. Yes, we talked about this at the end of the last game, is that BYU, man, everyone cheered for that hurdle. It wasn't a hurdle. He didn't clear him. He got nailed and knocked out of bounds. But anyway, they get another field goal, and then let's see here. BYU. Oh, are you back? Are you still frozen?
I think I'm back now.
Okay, good. Well, hopefully we've gotten through the worst of it, and you're here for the highlight. Kind of what I was trying to say is, uncharacteristically, is that Will Ferrin misses one here at the end of this half. So
yeah,
wild, because he does it. We were just talking about how he does it time and again in the season, and he comes in clutch later on.
Look, I'm here for the lowlights. That's good.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
this. Was Jake Retzlaff's worst play of the season. I felt like he got too much flack for it. We all saw that what he was trying to do, and it was a bonehead play. It's his sixth collegiate start. I have bad news for Cougar fans. We're going to see some of that this year. we got a handful of guys who don't have a lot of starts under their belt.
And it's moments like that we're like, hey guys, remember, like, Jake has those throws to JoJo Phillips, but he also has these throws like this, and it's like he's kind of I think he's above average, but kind of an averaging quarterback that I think we can replicate a lot of what he does. And that's why I'm not as worried. I mean, I love Jake and I love what he brings. I feel very good with him at quarterback, but we have to remember, like, the moments like this thing, okay, we can win despite our quarterback at times.
Well, and I think we have to qualify it where I think we can replicate last year's Retzlaff success. The hope was he would take another step forward this year, right? That was the anticipation, is that now you've got a senior quarterback, knows the offense, full playbooks open to him, tons of options. I love this play, by the way, for all of Roderick's criticisms.
And that's how you hurdle. He actually dodged the guy, and actually
he does. But man, the fake reverse, and then you have a tight end dragging out after pretending to block for that reverse. It was beautiful. And one of the things I love about Roderick is just the plays like that are so much fun. And I agree, he gets too cutesy in the red zone, and you're just pulling your hair like, just punch it in. Just get the fourth, just get 4th and 1, whatever it is. But man, some of those are so much fun to watch like that. But yeah, I think that Hillstead, and oh my goodness, what a catch by Hill. Too bad we don't use our tight ends, right? I mean,
I love Keanu Hill. I was disappointed not to see more of him this last season.
That was because they used him a ton in the first 3 games. We'll watch in Wyoming. He's got this great delayed drag route for a touchdown against Wyoming.
What's with that?
This was such a crazy. So this whole sequence, you got the fumble there that he catches.
We'll talk, but first I want to look at, is someone tackling with their back? Like, look at this. They're like, they hit him. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, he was a squirrely little guy. I mean, he could spin off a lot of tacklers. But oh my goodness,
this for me is one of the top interceptions of the year.
Easily could have been. I think it was number 1 pick all year. We had some great picks. The Tanner Wall interception against Arizona down at the goal line. But this one, the setting, the context of the game,
and he sniffed it out and got over there. It wasn't
and to get 2 feet in, that would have been good in the NFL. And then we turned around and give it away.
So, like, is so dangerous. You got to give Braden Chime credit for that tackle right there.
Yes, that's a game-saving tackle.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, another turnover. I mean, that I remember now. The people were frustrated with Retzlaff after this game, and we're like, it's just more of the same. We got to see him clean it up. And I think we did see more of it from him, but I think.
But I mean, imagine
minimizing it.
Imagine being SMU. The guy tries a lateral when he's falling to the ground. I mean, it's just a boneheaded play as Jake Retzlaff's pick. I mean, I feel bad for SMU fans because you're watching that and you're just like, guys, stop turning it over in the red zone. Like, this is beyond dumb. Just go down. Like, you're literally tackled and he throws it behind him. Deliberately stays up so he can throw it on the ground behind him.
I couldn't believe they overturned it because it was close enough that I was like, maybe if whatever the original call on the field, but they overturned it. And of course, Jacob Robinson there, Johnny on the spot, and he gets it. And this is just huge. Like, that really is game saving. And that's why, like, you don't give up on plays. And like, even if you can stop them on the 1 yard line or whatever, things happen, especially, oh man. And Jacob Robinson, I think he gets like half credit for that tackle right there. But I mean, that guy was going down regardless.
I think our corners will be able to cover well. I hope they can tackle as well as Jacob Robinson. I mean, especially for his size, he was such a sure tackler out there on the corner. And you need that so much in today's football. You got to have corners who can make solo open field tackles. And Robinson was so good. It didn't matter that he was 6 foot 190 and looked like he was outmatched in some of those as far as size. He'd tackle guys who were 30 pounds heavier than he was in the backfield.
Can we just talk about these kicks though? I mean, this guy, there's a reason they're showing it so many times in the highlights. Well, maybe one because the game didn't have tons of beautiful highlights, but I mean, his he was nails.
Yep.
So I give him credit, but and then this.
Oh, Miles Davis back again.
Yeah. So this is, and I think we're about to have the big Miles Davis run.
Yeah. So the most, I'll tell you, I think this is it. This is the game winner. This was so pretty. I love Miles Davis. I'm sad he didn't work out. I hope he does great at Utah State. But boy, that was a fun play. And the most impactful play on the season was not. They didn't even show it. It's when LJ turned his ankle early in this game, and now we had to figure out a way to be running back by committee for a while. Sione Moa emerged and got injured, and Jake Retzlaff was our leading rusher through the first 6 games. That was huge. I mean, if LJ stays healthy, I think we win this going away.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, it definitely did turn the momentum. Yeah, and this is too easy for Will.
Here's the first game winner of the season for him. He's just getting warmed up.
Yeah, but I mean, the other one was at the end of the half after you're way too uncomfortably close with SIU, and he hit that. So that was an important field goal at that moment of that game. Now
it was
the final score. It wasn't, but at that moment of the game,
it was big.
This was obviously much bigger. Like, you had to have that, and you did not want to. And I love the celebration from Satake and the emotion.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
So, all right, so let's wrap it up because that's it. So that's he after a game like that, you got to be on edge. Like,
he's amped, man.
So let's go through. Okay, offensive MVP for you on the SMU game.
I'm giving it to Miles Davis. He doesn't get a lot of opportunities to get that offensive MVP. I know he didn't score a touchdown on that run, and it's coming down to one play. The offense played ugly all game long. They kind of had to grind out a victory, but Miles Davis comes up clutch when we need it most.
That's a good one. There wasn't any single player that had just a lights out game. Obviously, the offense struggled a ton. I kind of was thinking and I guess Miles Davis falls under that. Is this kind of running back by committee because they kind of kept it going when we kept turning the ball over and having difficulty, and then obviously at the end. So yeah, I like that. Miles Davis really with that play right there just about sealed it. I mean, it was all about the timing, and Jake really had that pitch down. That was a play that we went back to time and again in this season, and
he was good at that.
But that one was the first of many and very, very clutch. Okay, defense, who you got?
Mark Collins. I'd give it to the whole secondary to stop that offense. They could not pass the ball against that secondary, and they were so good passing the ball all year long and the year before. It's part of the identity of that team, and they couldn't do it. Mark Collins with the clutch pick, representing the whole secondary, who deserved the nod.
Yeah, so I love that that you picked Mark Collins there. I picked Jacob Robinson. He had kind of a quiet game, but he was shutting them down. But he was there on the spot for that for the fumble recovery, which is somewhat good luck, but just being in the right place at the right time. But he jumped on it. But then the very next highlight, they showed him getting there in that backfield, making that tackle and just slowing them down. And like you said, it was that whole secondary just shutting down their passing game on a very potent offense. So I think they're all deserving. Special teams, Will Ferrin. I don't think
Will Ferrin. I don't think it'd be anyone else. Yep.
And then how about the overall MVP? I think you got to give it to the defense there.
I give it to Jay Hill. Yeah, Jay Hill's the overall MVP of that. To drop that was a master stroke, and really, showing things that would be coming for the rest of the year. Jay Hill did a great job prepping that game.
So my play of the game. So I know I gave defensive MVP to Jacob Robinson, but my play of the game was the Mark Collins interception.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It's that or the Miles Davis pitch. But man, that interception was so good. It was so good. So I'd have to agree with you. That's play of the game.
It's the one that stands out to me when I think back in this game. I know everyone thinks of the SMU turnover, although that was more of them making a bad play and BYU capitalizing on it. And BYU had just made a terrible play of their own. And so it was just a series of turnovers. But that was the one that was he just went and got that and made it happen. And just like the athleticism and the control he had with his body to bring that in, it was just so impressive and so clutch too. So several clutch plays coming in that game, but that one is the one that will forever stand out to me, helping BYU seal the deal there and coming away with, which by the end of the season was turned out to be a very, very impressive win, even though it did not feel like it at the time. And we ended the game, I think, much more frustrated and a little exasperated with BYU than, at the end, hindsight would allow us to look on it with a slightly more positive perspective.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. So that was our first run at our replayables. Next week, we will hit up Wyoming and Kansas State. I'm really looking forward to that. We're hoping to get a special guest on. I'll go ahead and say it. We're trying to get Jason Shepard on for next week if schedules allow, and he's looking forward to talk about those games as well with us and breaking down the latest with BYU. So, all right. Well, with that, Adam, I think we've gone on plenty long on a summer night when no major news is broken. So, but appreciate you joining us. If you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate you watching. And as always, go Cougs.
Go Cougs.